Today, I'm going to take you on a tour of one of the most stunning castles in the world, the Château de Chenonceau. There is no better way to come upon this beauty than by paddling up the river Cher. My friends and I rented kayaks, and as you can see, the views are breathtaking. But there are advantages to coming in the more traditional route. Located in the heart of the Loire Valley, the Château de Chenonceau lies in the midst of a 173-acre park. There are gardens upon gardens, mazes, restaurants, and wine tastings. But let's get to the main event, the castle itself. Château de Chenonceau is also known as the Ladies' Castle, partly because it's been owned by more women than men, but mostly because these women commissioned and supervised the most significant renovations of this castle. I'll give you a brief history while we look around and show you some of my favorite rooms along the way. The original castle was built in the 11th century, but the chateau we see today dates back to 1513, when Catherine Briconnet, wife of King Charles XVIII, created a new chateau on the pillars of a former mill. In 1547, Diane de Poitiers commissioned a 60-meter bridge and gallery over the river, which was finally finished in 1559 thanks to Catherine de Medici. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you more about Diane de Poitiers, so let's take a look around the kitchen while I fill you in. So, Henry II was married to Catherine de Medici, but took Diane de Poitiers as his favorite, which basically means she was his number one mistress. Even though she was 2 decades older than him, he loved her. He actually signed his name Henry Diane because he thought of them as one person, and he gave her this castle as a symbol of that love. Not too shabby as far as gifts go. There was, however, someone who did not care for this gift at all, Henry's wife, Catherine. Let's take a peek into Diane's room here. Every king creates his own symbol. Let's take a look at the floor where you can see this symbol more clearly. This is Henry's. You can see a big H in the center, flanked by 2 of Catherine's C's. Only the reversed C looks awfully like a D for Diane, doesn't it? By contrast, this is Catherine's room, and you can see quite clearly that there are no hidden D's in this room. Sadly, Henry died from a fatal injury in 1559, and Catherine saw this as a chance to oust Diane from the Château de Chenonceau, which she quickly did, and moved herself in. In addition to finally completing the expansion over the river, Catherine also had the palace gardens landscaped and constructed the grand courtyard. In 1557, the Grand Gallery was inaugurated with one of the most iconic celebrations in the history of the chateau. After Catherine's death in 1589, Château de Chenonceau passed to her daughter-in-law, who left it to her niece, and then to King Henry IV's mistress. In 1720, the Duke of Bourbon purchased the chateau but did not take good care of it. He sold a lot of the statues and art pieces that used to be here. But luckily, in 1733, another woman, Madame Louise Dupin, saved the day. Louise had the chateau renovated and created literary salons to entertain intellectuals like Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Montesquieu, and others. She's also credited with having saved the chateau during the French Revolution when the Revolutionary Guard wanted to destroy it, by claiming it was essential to travel and commerce, being the only bridge across the river for many miles. The next major historical event of note took place back in the galleries during World War I, when Gaston Merrier, who owned the chateau, offered the space for a temporary military hospital. The 2 galleries were turned into hospital rooms with 120 beds. There was also an operating room with X-ray machines, and Gaston's wife, son, and daughter volunteered to work at the hospital together with qualified doctors, nurses, and surgeons. Over 2,200 injured and disabled soldiers were treated here from 1914 to 1918. One other important thing to note. During the Nazi occupation in World War II, France was divided basically in half, with the north being occupied by the Germans and the south unoccupied. By some stroke of strategic luck, this chateau spanned between occupied and unoccupied France, In fact, the Grand Gallery at Chenonceau became the sole point of access to the free zone, and the Meunier family helped smuggle people fleeing Nazi tyranny out through this very door. Today, the Château de Chenonceau is a UNESCO World Heritage Site with over 1 million visitors a year. It's the second most visited castle in France after the Château de Versailles. Oh, and the flowers. Have I mentioned the flowers? Aren't they stunning? Just don't touch them or you'll get yelled at over the loudspeakers. The head florist is the meilleur ouvrier de France, or the best artisan in France. The Château de Chenonceau is 2 hours from Paris by car and 1 hour by TGV. It is definitely worth the visit.